Hello, hello. We are live. Hi, everyone. We are
Hello.
live here on
Hello.
Portland Cocktail
Hey.
Week. We have the most amazing panel today with another wonderful installment of tasting the wines of the Loire Valley with Saget Le Perrier, with the one and only Arnaud Saget. We are so excited to have him here today, as well as our top scorers for our master class. We had a quiz for our master class, and we brought some of our favorite or our highest scorers, some of the nerdiest nerds that we know, to come and taste wine with Arnaud. For those of you who haven't met Arnaud yet, Arnaud is the third generation proprietor of Saget Le Perrier. Following his formal training, Arnaud joined the brand's export department. Arnaud is also involved in many other elements of the business, including vineyard training policies, the blending of the wines, and formulating the global marketing strategy for Saget Le Perrier. So we can't be more grateful to have him here. How are you today, Arnaud?
I'm very good, very good. Very happy to be here again with you and with other people and taste the wines, and it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, it's not just our heads floating this time and me getting super excited. We brought some friends with us, so I couldn't be happier to taste some wines with everyone today. If you haven't yet, if you're watching at home, if you haven't liked or subscribed on YouTube, please do so at Portland Cocktail Week. Also, if you have any questions for Arnaud or our team here, please make sure that you enter into the comments so we can get those asked. I'll pop in and ask those. If you have wines at home that you're tasting along with, if you're some of those 50 people who did well in that quiz, we know you have wine. So if you have any questions you'd like to ask, please let us know. If you're handsome Jared and you want to tell us what a panel, we also appreciate that as well. So, but before we start tasting some wine, let's get to know our panel a little bit. Let's start. Chandler, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, hi, y'all. I'm Chandler. I'm a chef and bartender based out of Texas. Recently moved to the Dallas area. Been doing what I do for quite some time, and I love some wine, as you can tell by my fantastic shirt.
That is a top-notch shirt for sure. Awesome.
Yeah.
Raj, what are you up to with those wonderful glasses and the most exotic background out of all of us?
I'll be happy to tell you, Michael. Well, my name is Raj. I'm a bartender based here in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I also do woodworking during the day, so bartend at night. So I usually wear these nice protective yellow tinted sunglasses to protect my eyesight and to help me see better when I'm working with saws and wood and making very nice things. So, but yeah, I enjoy French wine quite a bit and I'm excited to be a part of this lovely panel and pleasure to do some tasting with the expert Arnaud.
Awesome. I love the size of your headphones as well. I know you're going to get like a fully interactive tasting experience. So I'll try to drink into the microphone as much as I can.
Please do.
And Josh, Mr. Seberg, the legend himself, tell us about yourself.
Hey, I'm Josh Seberg from Norfolk, Virginia, where I run a bunch of bars and spend a lot of time drinking Spanish wines. I run a topless bar, but my real love is French wine. So I was super excited to get asked to hang out and drink Loire Valley wines.
That's awesome. Well, Arnaud, without further ado, should we talk a little bit about what we're tasting first?
Yeah, sure, and we can for sure start the little presentation to help us follow the tasting. Just as a reminder, we are and as you said, we are family owned and operated in the Loire Valley. So this is just a small selection of what we do as a winery, what's available on the US market. But I think is a good set to kind of introduce to our wines, to the Loire Valley wines, and discover the different quality of what we produce as a winery. So as you can see, we'll go through 6 wines today. So I know you're all professionals, so the tasting order won't be like whites and reds after. So we're going back and forth from white to reds. We're gonna start with the Muscadet, which is a wine that I really appreciate myself. It's a wonderful wine. It's a region that has to be known more than it is right now, unfortunately. Then we'll follow by a Chinon, a very classic Chinon that we make. And then we'll jump into the La Perrière brand, which consists into those 4 wines. So La Petite Perrière, Sauvignon Blanc, the Pinot Noir, and then we'll end up the tasting with a Sancerre white and a Blanc Fumé de Pouilly, also known as Pouilly Fumé. For those of you that know the Pouilly Fumé designation, Blanc Fumé de Pouilly is the second name of the appellation, actually the original name of the appellation, but it's the same. Pouilly Fumé and Blanc Fumé de Pouilly is the same area of production.
I believe that was
So
on the
here we go.
quiz too. So these guys.
Yeah,
should know.
yeah, that's right. That's right. So let's start with the Muscadet, and just before we taste the wine, I wanted just to give you a nice little map of this region that you can find actually on the Muscadet Interprofession website. What's interesting here is that you can clearly see that there are three main regions of production in the Muscadet within the big Muscadet region. So the one on the north is known as Coteaux de la Loire. The big one in the middle, which is darker in color, is the Sèvres. So this is the one that we will taste today, the Sèvres sur Lie. Sur Lie is a production method, but the area of production is right here in the middle of the Muscadet area. And then you got the last one, which is called Coteaux de Grandlieu. So three main areas of production for the Muscadet. Most of people know Muscadet as a big entity, as a big region, but there are a lot of different variation within this big Muscadet region. And if you go, if you dig deeper into those region, you will also find what we call crus communaux, which is a new designation within the Muscadet area, with villages like Clisson or Gorges, which are different in the way they are produced compared to a classic style of Muscadet. So the one that we will taste today is is produced in the darker area called Muscadet de Sèvres. And I chose a picture of the different type of soil that you can find in this area. I find it interesting. All of them are the three type of soil that you can see on the right is granitic, mica schist, and gneiss. Those three type of soils are for all of them volcanic rocks. So it's all surrounded by volcanic rocks in this area, which gives of course the typicity to the wines, but also and you will see during the tasting the influences of the Atlantic Ocean that brings a lot of characteristic to the Muscadet. So we can taste the wine. So this will be the Muscadet de Sèvres sur Lie. So that's why I said sur Lie, because this is a production method actually, meaning that by regulation it has to stay on the lees at least for 5 months. And this is what gives the complexity to this wine. So you can have a straight Muscadet or even a Muscadet de Sèvres, but when you have the sur Lie method written clearly on the label, meaning it's a sur Lie, that means that the wine stayed for quite a while on its fine lees, and most of the time it will provide more complexity, more depth, more length also to the wine, and more ability to age as well. So the one we are testing right now is, I guess, is the 2017 that we all have today. I find it interesting because most of the time you think Muscadet has to be drunk very young. That's the case. I mean, Muscadet, when they are young, they are very nice, especially with, with all kind of seafoods, especially with oysters. But when we investigated with my brother 2 years ago to purchase a property in this area, we tasted a lot of wine. And I was amazed by the quality of the Muscadet that were aged a little bit. So this one is already 4 years old, and we can see by I don't know if we clearly see on the screen, but we can see by the color that the wine is still very fresh. It still has the green hues, which means that the wine is still alive and is still very fresh and vibrant. On the nose, we can have these slight notes of oxidation, but to my mind is a very noble kind of oxidation, not meaning that the wine is dead. It's a question of how you like your wines, but to my point of view, it provides even more complexity to the wine when it ages a little bit. It's still very yeah. Go ahead, Michael.
For those at home who may not have access to oysters, what other foods do you recommend with this?
We can have all kind of seafood. Shrimp will be very nice with Muscadet. You can have also all kind of white fishes. With kind of It's the same that the Sauvignon that we produce in the central vineyard. I like when the wine has enough complexity and enough structure. You can have like white fishes with buttercream sauces, like with those kind of more rich type of dishes. I think is very nice as well.
What do we think, panel?
So I'm always gonna say something weird because my chef brain does weird things. But the nose reminds me of the outside of a cantaloupe. I know that's very strange. I've had this conversation with people that it's a chef thing more than other people to smell the outside of like fruits and vegetables. But usually you smell cantaloupes to see if they're ripe as well. But the outside has that kind of earthy, and I think that's the oxidation that Arnaud was referring to.
You're right.
And I would like to eat this with a fennel hollandaise on something.
Ooh. Yeah, I'm very familiar with the smell of like grown cantaloupes. Like in the area that I live, there's lots of them around. They grow, like the largest producer in the West Coast is like a few miles away. So that smell definitely is that like almost like shale earth for sure, and that sweet flavor. I definitely understand.
Yeah, there's that nice like. I love me Muscadet, and then especially like you were saying, Arnaud, with like a little age on it, you get that little nobility, but you can smell like the lees aging too. It's almost that kind of like very light sort of sweet cream, like little like tangy and zippy thing.
Raj, is that your dog who's excited about the Muscadet? Is that what we're hearing?
Not this time.
That's
No.
fine. He's well trained.
But I kind of, to Josh's point, I really enjoy the mouthfeel of this Muscadet, and I think that has to do with that sort of the aging on the lees. I think it just has this nice like bready, oily mouthfeel that kind of just coats the palate, and it goes nicely. I enjoy this quite a bit. The acid levels are lovely for the age, and I can definitely see myself having a few oysters, a few clams, something, with this wine. It goes great.
Very nice.
Any other food items we would want with this wine? Anything at home that you think people should take away from enjoying this?
I mean, I'll take Raj's clams and then add in my fennel hollandaise and then put that over a slice of bread. I think that sounds delicious. Might be a little high speed, but it sounds tasty. Maybe just bread and butter, to be honest. Like a really good crusty bread, maybe like an herb butter.
Yeah.
Now we're talking.
Keep it simple.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that wine at this stage of aging could go very well also with escargot.
I could see that.
That could be an interesting pairing. I would like to try.
So Arnaud, we have a question coming in from our online component. The question is, in the original presentation, you mentioned the ageability of the Muscadet. Without being very acidic like Sauv Blanc, how does this happen?
Well, that's true that it's not as acidic as Sauvignon Blanc, and definitely not as Chenin Blanc could be. But I guess that's the fact that the wine doesn't really, the grapes don't mature the same way than Chenin Blanc and Sauvignon Blanc, and they always have this very nice balance between maturity and acidity. So it's just a question, it's the same than in the Sauvignon Blanc, for example. I mean, if you have a very hot vintage, very warm, you will lose in acidity, and that's just a matter of balance between the acidity and the maturity. And I think within this region of Muscadet, we don't have big amplitude of temperature, so the melon de Bourgogne ripe quite slowly and surely, and we make sure that we always have a very nice balance between the maturity, so meaning the potential sugar and the alcohol content of the final wine and the acidity. And I guess that's the key in the longevity or the ability to age of a wine. And that's pretty much the same for all the grape varieties. I mean, the Chenin Blanc is exactly the same. I mean, a Chenin Blanc that won't get ripe enough will have a huge acidity, and that's a wine that you won't be able to dry within the 2 or 3 first year, So it's just a question of balance. But that's true that the Melon de Bourgogne naturally is less acidic than the 2 other grapes that I mentioned. Yeah. Are you ready for the Chinon?
Team,
Let's
are we
go.
ready? I think so.
Yeah.
Let's go. So the Chinon, again, a little, a nice view actually of the fortress of Chinon. Interesting thing is that the river that you see underneath is not the Loire Valley. That you can see on the right inside. Chinon is located on an affluent of the Loire Valley called the Vienne, which is this river. So very nice area. The Chinon is appellation is considered within the main Touraine region. And I can tell you that if you want to visit, all the places are beautiful in the Loire, but this particular place, the Touraine area, is fantastic. I mean, in terms of culture, gastronomy, and of course the wines. So Chinon is a relatively small appellation. It's a little less than Sancerre. It's 2,300 hectares of vineyards, so quite small appellation. Many people know the Chinon red, but there are also some whites in Chinon. The majority, what is produced is red, of course, but there are some Chenin Blanc in Chinon that makes the Chinon whites. They are actually very nice white wines out of Chinon. So today we don't have the white, but we have I would say the classic red Chinon, which is our Marie de Beauregard cuvée. There you go. In 2018 vintage, and what we could say here is that this Chinon is 100% Cabernet Franc, which cannot be the case systematically in Chinon, because in Chinon we do also have a little bit of Cabernet Sauvignon that is planted in this area. So this wine is 100% Cabernet Franc. And what I like about this wine is the fact that we make sure that we have enough maturity on our grapes to make a Chinon that will be enjoyable when it's young. And that's something that really last time I spoke about the climate change, and the how it will affect the grapes of the white grapes versus the red grapes. And that's a typical example. I mean, with this Chinon, that the climate change have I don't know if it's politically correct to say that, but a positive impact on the red grapes. We tend to have red wines from Chinon or from other areas that produce red wines like Sancerre with the pinot noir. We tend to have more and more maturities on the red grapes that really help us to make wines that are easy drinking, fruit forward, and with a very low alcohol percentage. And I think that many people are seeking for those kind of wines nowadays. Very easy to pair with very different type of foods, even some fish, because the wine is light enough to go with some fishes. So this is what we are looking for with this Chinon, is to have a wine that is easy drinking, fruit forward, and easy to pair with food.
Well, panel, do we agree with that?
Yeah, I have a question actually about like the winemaking behind this. So a lot of times, I'm like really sensitive to pyrazines, like those big like green bell pepper notes, and so it puts me off many Cab Franc. But this is delicious and, like as you said, super light, well balanced, and doesn't have that kind of oppressive bell pepper thing that I think can be in a lot of Cab Franc. Does that have to do with specifics of the way you make wine, or is that more representative of Cab Franc from Chinon in general?
Well, that's a combination of both, and thank you for this question. I think is an interesting point. I think what I mentioned previously is the climate change that really helps in some ways to get better maturities on the Cab Franc that it used to be like 10 or 15 years ago, and that's a fact. But also the viticultural processes that change a lot over the past 10 or 15 years, meaning working out of the soils, making sure that we don't have huge yields on the red grapes. And I think that changed a lot over the past 10, 15 years. And also in the winemaking process, that means less extraction. I mean, when you have a grape that is ripe enough, that has the right maturity, you don't need like to extract too much to get off the color from the fruit. So that means that you don't extract those kind of vegetal character out of this grape. That's the same that we observe in the Pinot Noir from Sancerre. We kind of lower the yields make sure that we train the vineyard the best way to get the best maturity in the fruit themselves. And then during the extraction process, we don't extract too much of bad tannins while we extract the color from the fruit. So you can see the color here is very dense. It's quite purple. It's very kind of heavy color. It's not a light color. I mean, you won't see through the glass. But at the same time, it means that we had the right maturity at the time of the harvest for this specific vintage.
That's awesome.
Arnaud, how do you say I'm in love? Because I love this. This is really, really. I'm a big red wine fan. I'm enjoying the white, but this is amazing.
J'adore.
J'adore. So it smells like new books. And it tastes like the tannin quality, the dryness that it has, which is not a whole lot. It's, it's very lightly tannic, but it reminds me of a very specific fruit. And I tried to look up what it's called in English. It's a fruit that I had when I lived in Central America. It's called jocote. It's a tree fruit. And the science name for it is Spondius purpura, but it's this very interesting fruit that changes drastically from like green to ripe, and it's eaten in both of its forms, the way a lot of people in Latin America eat mangoes, green or ripe. But I really want to drink this with cornbread stuffing and chocolate pie. It makes me think of Thanksgiving, and I don't know why, but I want this at my table in November. This is delicious. Oh my gosh. It's so good.
Thank you very much, and that's a good point that you mentioned. I mean, with some chocolate dessert, when you get this type of red wines that are not heavy in alcohol, that are very fruit forward with low tannins, I mean that could be a perfect combination with chocolate based dessert for sure.
If I was in France, it would be pot du crème, but we're in Texas, so it'd be my grandmother's chocolate pie.
Yeah,
that's gonna be nice either.
I love Cab Franc to begin with. It's one of my favorite varietals to drink. When I first sniffed this, I was very blown away. I love the complexity in the nose. I did get that nice, fresh red bell pepper, but it's not too much. It's not, very in your face, but the color is nice and deep. It's not as deep as some, which I think is beautiful with the medium tannins this wine is providing. And I do enjoy a good wine that you keep going back for another sip, because to me, that's what makes a good wine. Like you want to keep going back for more to see what's really going on in that glass, right? So, I mean, on the nose, I got a lot of oak wood tannins, which I really enjoyed, but they were nice and subtle with that red bell pepper. And then on the tongue, I get those nice juicy like strawberry notes, black raspberry notes. It's very fruity. Which I think is a great way to balance out this acidity and the tannins in this wine. Great job. I love this. This is beautiful.
Thank you.
Does anyone else get leather at all?
Yeah, I got leather.
Okay.
On the back of the tongue. You got these leather aromas that I really like. That's very nice.
Arnaud, are you sure this isn't Texan wine? It's like leather boots, chocolate pie.
That's designed for Texas.
Okay.
We got it.
It's that friendship wine where you open it up and then with friends and it just disappears right away and you're like, what happened? It's like everyone was just laughing and enjoying it. So well, wonderful. Right. Should we move on, team?
Sure. So next, we're gonna jump into the La Perrière brand. So the two first wines are considered in our Saget portfolio, and then we're gonna focus on 4 wines coming from La Perrière brand. So just a little history here. So La Perrière is actually a property that my family acquired back in 1996, and that's actually on this specific slide. You can see part of our vineyard on the picture on the top. And on the picture on just underneath, you can see the place itself, which is, as you can see, a very, very nice and unique place, which is a cave, natural cave that was carved 200 million years ago. And we make all the wines into that cave. We don't have any other facilities to make the wines from La Perrière, so we do everything into this cave. So that's a property originally that was only focused on Sancerre appellation, we have 45 hectares of vineyard in Sancerre. A majority of Sauvignon Blanc. We have about 9 hectares of Pinot Noir on La Perrière. But a couple of years ago, we decided with my brother to kind of turn the La Perrière that was originally an estate to a more larger brand, and to make sure that we want to explore all the aspects of the Sauvignon Blanc and the Pinot Noir. So that's the purpose of the brand, is to be really specialist of those two grape varieties and trying to explore its variation, and in that case, outside of the Sancerre area. So for the first one we will taste, it's called La Petite Perrière. Is a straight Sauvignon Blanc, and that's a wine that we created with my brother back in 2009 for the first vintage. And we created under the appellation, or the denomination, I shouldn't call it appellation, but denomination, Vin de France. I don't know, guys, how much you know about Vin de France. Have you ever heard about that?
If they watched the masterclass, they learned some things.
Yeah. So this is a Vin de France, and this specific wine is coming from 3 different regions. So that's how we designed the product with my brother. We wanted to explore different characteristics of Sauvignon Blanc that were produced in different areas of France. So this wine is coming from the south of France, majority of Languedoc, which is in the area of Limoux. A part of it, of course, is coming from the Loire Valley, mostly from Touraine area, and a very small proportion of these Sauvignon Blancs coming from southwest of France is the Gers area in southwest. Is about it can vary from one vintage to another, but it's about 5 to 10%, never exceeding 10% of the final blend of this wine. So this is the real work of the noble work of the negociant, I would say here, is to try to craft the same profile of wine every year, and to make sure that we got the right quality and the right standards of quality on every vintage. So of course we have a vintage variation, of course, but we make sure that the profile of the wine is consistent through the year. And it's been a real journey for the past 10 years to make sure that we are consistent while the demand and the volumes are growing. So this is a product that is very successful, especially on the US market. Is about 50% of our total sales for La Petite Perrière on the US. And if you taste the wine, you will see that what I said about the different origins of the wines, you can clearly got them on the nose. You have this very rich aromas from the Sauvignon Blanc from the south, but when you smell it again and sip it, you will have these minerals and this I would say green in a noble way again, but green aspects from the other regions. So that's this balance that really allows us to produce this kind of quality on this wine.
Arnaud, what foods do you recommend with this Vin de France?
Well, with the Sauvignon Blanc, I would, to be honest with you, I would drink it on its own as an aperitif. You know, it doesn't necessarily needs food, or finger food. Like during the aperitif time, you have like crackers with some cheese. To me, that's the perfect type of food that you can have with this Sauvignon Blanc.
It is my favorite hour of the day, is aperitif hour. So that's Josh, how are you feeling?
Oh, happy as a clam or oyster or cheese on a cracker. The acid on this is insane. It's so good. This is like one of my favorite aspects about white wine from this region. And that's interesting that you say, talking about like the noble work of the negociant is in sort of creating consistency. But I think it's also cool to have a Sauvignon Blanc that is representative, of just Sauvignon Blanc from France, right? Like these vins de France, rather than, I think for me and like probably for all of us here, and especially Chandler with the chef brain, when you're looking at wine from a specific region, you almost want to look for specific things from that region to kind of like confirm, like, do I really know what I'm talking about? So it's nice to have something that's like representative of the area, but easier drinking, almost more like casual drinking Sauvignon Blanc, while still like having all those things we love about it.
I definitely agree with Josh. Again, I mean, Josh knows his stuff, and he's saying all the things I wish I could say. And to you, Arnaud, like aperitif style, this is great. I mean, this is like drinking a nice glass of vermouth, before dinner, almost. I love the peach notes that I get on the palate. It has this like nice, like ripe, juicy peach. I grew up in the South where peaches were everywhere. So, and it tastes lovely. Like Josh said, the acid is right on point there. And I much prefer a French style Sauvignon Blanc over like, an American grown or New Zealand style, where it's just a big grassy hay grapefruit bomb that just kind of blows the palate out. I wish more consumers, in my neck of the woods here could try more of these French style Sauvignon Blancs. They're just, super crushable, easy drinking, will pair very well with food. I'm seeing some comments coming in here from our online viewers here, feta, pistachio. It's lunchtime here for me now. I haven't eaten breakfast yet and I'm starving. So this all sounds amazing.
This is a super aperitif then.
Oh, super aperitif. Yes. So, yes, I'm enjoying this quite a bit. The color is beautiful. The nose was great. Definitely get those characteristics of, the melons, the ripe fruits, the stone fruits. It's very nice.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So like drinking this, smelling it first, the nose, I immediately smelled like river rocks and honeydew melon. Those are like my two big takeaways. And to be very honest, I don't drink a lot of Sauvignon Blanc, and it's probably because a lot of the ones I've been buying are completely opposite to this. But this makes me think so hard about my training when I was in culinary school, and we go through like traditional French cuisine. And if I was going to do the aperitif thing that everybody seems on board with, I would pair this with a chicken mousse. And then if I was going to do it for dinner, I am a sucker for a really simple fish papillote, where you like put it in a little envelope made of parchment paper, and you can put it on a light grill or in the oven, just on a bed of veggies or citrus fruits. And it's just the fish in its best essence. And I think that would go so beautifully with this wine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's of course all. I mean, as I said, the Sauvignon Blanc in general, they will pair very well with all type of fish dishes. But again, this wine is designed to be easy, to be accessible to a lot of wine drinkers, and that's in that mindset that we designed this product with my brother, is to be accessible to a different audience. You are experts of wine, so you know wines. You tasted a lot of wine, so I'm very glad you appreciate it. But this wine was also designed to seduce those people that sometimes have a hard time to go to wines. I think it's serious enough to seduce wine lovers like you, but also accessible enough to kind of bring in new consumers to the wines. That was the idea behind.
I love that term, seducing new drinkers. That's something that these three know how to do for sure.
I think this wine would be perfect for someone like my mom, because every time I try to get my mom to give me tasting notes, she's like, "It's tasty." I feel like if I gave this to her, she'd really enjoy it, but wouldn't necessarily have like all of the tasting notes that we have. But I think she'd really like it.
I second that. What Chandler said. My mother does not drink alcohol at all, and if I were to like slip her something, it would probably be this. I think she would enjoy it.
Yeah. 3 for 3 on mom wine for sure.
The moms of the panel endorse.
Indeed.
Well, are we ready?
Let's go to the brother, to the red version of La Petite Perrière, which will be the Pinot Noir that we got on Petite Perrière. So the same idea behind. So I won't tell the story again on how it's made. The idea is the same than the white. Just to mention, and I think I said that last time, but to be honest with you, we had a harder time to find the right balance, the right quality on the reds versus the white, and it took us like maybe 4 or 5 vintages since 2000 until 2015 or 16 vintage to be really happy of the quality of the red. Sourcing, we didn't know how to source in the other regions before La Petite Perrière, and we started sourcing in 2010. And we found out the very good Sauvignon Blanc to enter the blend of the white, but for the reds, the sourcing was more difficult. It was more jammy. You know, we didn't, to be honest with you, we didn't even know if it was Pinot Noir that were proposed to us at some point. So we really had to work with the people we are sourcing from now for 10 years to make sure that we got the right quality, and we are really, really happy of the quality of this wine for the past let's say 4 or 5 vintages. I think it's really the characteristic that we wanted in this product. Again, with the same mentality, being approachable, being serious enough. So we got this this beautiful Pinot Noir that is all fruit driven, with very low tannins, not as jammy as American Pinot Noir can be at some point. So stylistically, definitely more French. So that's exactly the style of the wine that we wanted on this wine.
So we are at the midway point just about, and we had a question come in from Facebook, and they ask, do you find that certain wines work better early in the day while others are better suited for late in the day? Or is it just up to each person's personal preference? I think that's extra applicable for us on the West Coast of America. It's like 10:30 a.m. So I'm all about breakfast wine. But Arnaud, do you have any insight on this?
Well, I to be honest with you, I think it's very it's something very personal, you know, and the same with the aromas in the wines, you know. Chandler has her own references, and like everyone has, you know. So you know, I think the tasting of the wine could be in the morning, could be in the evening, could be at night. You know, it's all personal. What is true at some point, and I don't work with that myself, but I've seen a lot of professionals working with those calendars with the, you know, the leaf days and the fruit days and stuff like this. And I don't work with it, but I can tell for sure that the wines doesn't taste the same way from one day to another. So that's for sure. I don't think that's the wine that are really moving that fast from one day to another, but I think that's our body and the fact that we are affected by, you know, I don't know, some kind of energy, some kind of environmental stuff that really can affect our taste and nose. But I find it out several times, like being in the US, for example, working on the market and tasting the same wines, the exact same wines from one day to another that weren't tasting the same at all. But during the same day, to be honest with you, the time that I prefer to taste the wine is just before the lunch, because, you know, you are a little bit hungry and you have all your senses that are ready to smell and taste properly. So that's the time of the day that I taste the wines better.
And it makes for a much more fun afternoon when you've had a few glasses of wine in like
exactly.
early morning. So
Exactly.
Raj, how you feeling about this one?
I feel what does Conan O'Brien say on his show about something optimistic, cautiously optimistic about this wine? Yes. But no, I'm liking this so far. My first whiff and first taste reminds me of this rose petal syrup that is from India. It's an Indian export. My family and I are Indian, and you'd mix it with milk, this rose syrup. And this nose and flavor reminds me of that rose syrup, but just in a nice drier film, you know. It's great. As I've been drinking this, I'm trying to compare apples and oranges here, and I'm looking at my Google Maps right now and trying to compare lines of latitude with the Loire Valley in like Willamette Valley, you know, up there in the Pacific Northwest. Because I know at my bars, a lot of guests love the Willamette Valley style, cold weather, a little bit more damp climate style Pinot Noir. They have a great rich flavor. They're nice and light, but still have that nice jammy, juicy, velvety profile to them. And as I'm drinking this, I'm getting nice minerality, which I love. The color is beautiful. And I just can't get over this childhood memory of my father mixing this rose syrup and milk and me drinking it. So I'm not comparing this to milk by any means, because it's not that, but it's tasty. I love it. Can you speak to that, Arnaud, like about the climate and terroir compared to like the Willamette Valley to maybe Loire Valley?
Well, I don't know which latitude falls the Willamette Valley compared to France, but what we can notice here is that we have, as I said, for the white is the same. We have a proportion of wines coming from different areas of France. So here we don't have the southwest, but we only have the Languedoc part that will bring, this kind of richness to the wine, this roundness in the mouth, and the Loire Valley Pinot Noir that will add to the blend this kind of minerals, the length, the acidity to the wine that is necessary, to in the blend. But I get what you mean. I mean, I've tasted some Pinots from this region, and you can find some similarities in the, I would say, in the spiciness of the wine. I agree with that. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, I definitely get some of the spiciness in there, and the acidity is great as well. I feel like it's nice. It's definitely drying me out, so I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we had another question come in from online real quick. They wanted to know, do you ever work with lesser known varietals like, and I'm going to butcher this word,
Grolo or Cote. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And have you ever produced a rosé?
On the Petite Perrière, we do have a rosé, which is a rosé. We don't taste it today, but it's available in the US market as well. It's a rosé made of 100% Pinot Noir. So we do produce a rosé, which is a dry style of rosé. And as for the other question, we work with less known varietals. We work actually with the two that are mentioned here. So the Grolo, that is designed mostly to make rosé in Anjou region, the Rosé d'Anjou, which is the off-dry style of rosé. Some people vinify it also in red, which gives interesting reds. We don't produce red with the Grolo, but interesting reds that are very light and very kind of spicy reds. And the Cote, which is also known as Malbec. Malbec is Cote is the name of Malbec in the Loire Valley, the local name of Malbec in the Loire Valley. And we produce some Malbec, some Cote in our estate in Touraine called Domaine des Grandes Espérances. We have actually a cuvée that is a single varietal Cote, 100% Malbec in this estate. So yes, we do have some less known varietals. The same in the Muscadet area. Some people know Gros Plan. Most of people know Muscadet or Muscadet sur Lie, which is made of melon de Bourgogne. But some people know Gros Plan, and Gros Plan is made of Folle Blanche, the same grape variety that is used in the cognac, in the distillation, for example. So we do have some Folle Blanche as well that we sell as Folle Blanche, IGP Folle Blanche. So we like to play with some nice varietals, and we at some points we can maybe also try to introduce some grapes that are not allowed in some territories. For example, I'm thinking of Pouilly Fumé, which is only Sauvignon Blanc. We are thinking with all this climate change, trying to introduce, for example, some Syrah in this area. We have to make it as a vin de France, because it cannot have any designation on it. But anyway, it's interesting to see how some new varietals can be implemented in our region with this factor that the climate is changing a lot.
That's awesome. That definitely answered that question. Chandler, how are we feeling about this pour?
So I'm kind of feeling where Raj was. This is a very nostalgia creating wine. The nose reminds me of my mother's flower shop. She had a flower shop for a while. She hustles a lot, changed her career a ton of times. But drinking it and just tasting it, this is something that if I was recommending it to someone, whether it's a home cook or a home drinker / bartender, or even just in a restaurant, this is what I like to call a 4-wheel drive wine, because it does a lot of things. You just got to let me show you what it can do. So back to Blair's question about where or what time is it okay to drink wine, and is it personal? I think it is personal, but I think sometimes we just kind of stray away from thinking you can have a red wine with breakfast, or you can have, certain things at certain times of the day. And I think that's just kind of the culture that we live in. But having traveled abroad, people drink at all different times of the day for different reasons. But if I was going to drink this at breakfast, I'd pair it with avocado toast. Easy. And then if I was going to do aperitif, I would take a grilled slice of crusty bread, smother it with some homemade blackberry jam, and then some crumbled goat cheese. And then being Texan, I love meat, so I don't need sides. You could just serve me like a steak and a side of wine, like no veg, just the wine on the side. That's
definitely going to be ordering that soon. I really like that order quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, it's great. I love it, but it's very versatile, and I really appreciate that in wine because it means I can get more people to try it. And sometimes people need to try it with something to get them seduced, as our note says. So I think you could seduce somebody depending on the time of day with a lot of different things. It's really tasty.
And the steak to my side of wine, Mr. Seberg, what do you feel about this wine?
I love it. There's not a lot to say that hasn't already been covered by Raj and Chandler. But it's just like, yeah, beautiful, balanced, representative Pinot. One question I kind of had our note in thinking about you saying that these wines are meant to be drunk younger versus some of the older things. One of the people in the comments was talking about opening a 66 Vouvray and then acting like that wouldn't make us all jealous. But it just made me think of, for you, like, how do you define drinking wine like fresh versus young versus letting it sit a bit?
How I'm not sure I understand the question.
In terms of years of aging, like when you say a wine is meant to be drunk fresh, do you mean you should be drinking like the most recent vintage right away? Is there like maybe a couple of years in a gap while it's still considered young, or like what does that mean to you specifically within years as it relates to these wines?
Well, specifically for these wines, when we say it has to be drunk quite young, it has to be drunk within the 2 or 3 years after the bottling. That's what I mean when young. But from our experience, by making those wines for 10 years, we know that those wines are most of the time they are consumed within the 18 months, maximum 2 years after the bottling, after they are released to the market. So, we have some library, of course, at the winery, and we keep all the style of the wine that we make, not only the high-end cuvées that we keep every year. So we keep everything, and we taste sometimes. For example, Petite Perrière that was made in 2010 or 2011, and we got pretty good surprises. The thing is that there is the terroir characteristic that we have on the Sancerre, on the Pouilly-Fumé, and the structure on the wine. So most of the time, that's the acidity that we get from the terroir that we don't have here, that will not make this wine being able to age like for 10 years. But sometimes we have good surprises. But I can say for sure that if you got a Petite Perrière 2018 in the fridge, it's not going to be a problem to drink it.
Fantastic.
I did some quick research on the lines of latitude from Willamette Valley to Loire Valley, and we're talking about approximately 300 kilometers distance difference from north to south, from the Loire Valley being about 300 kilometers further north of the Willamette Valley. So,
wow,
that's not that big, actually.
No, it's 69 miles is what Google said for the lines of latitude, and Willamette Valley is at 44 degrees. Or 44.9 degrees, and the Loire Valley is at 47.55 degrees on the lines of latitude. So not a big distance. I mean, 125, 145 miles is not that bad. So interesting stuff.
I told
Good.
you.
Thank you,
I
Raj.
told you we brought the nerds. I promised. I really did. I said.
But I like those kind of things. That's nice.
Thank you, Raj. That was awesome. Really. Are we ready to taste the next in line?
Yeah. Let's taste the two last wines, and we're gonna start actually with the Sancerre, because I guess in your package that the freshest vintage are over the two wines. So I think you got 19 on the Sancerre and 18 on the Blanc Fumé. I wish we could have the same vintage for both, because it's very interesting to taste them side by side. I mean, the same vintage with the same winemaker, the same winemaking process on two appellations that are really close one from the other. So that's very interesting to clearly see the differences between those two. But let's start with the Sancerre. And again, I decided to show you a little map, and I don't want to go too deep into that. is just to show you how the Sancerre appellation is constituted. So you can see that there are 14 different districts, or 14 different villages, as we can say. And what is noticeable on this on this little map is the percentage of each main type of soil that you can find in the Sancerre area. So you can see that Terre Blanche, what we call Terre Blanche, is also known as Kimmeridgian, which is the same type of soil you get in Chablis or in Champagne. Is actually the same vein of terroir that's coming down from Champagne, Chablis, and the Loire Valley, eating Sancerre and Pouilly-Fumé. So we got Terre Blanche, Kimmeridgian for 40%, Caillotte, which is another style of limestone, which is 40%, and Silex, which is only 20% of the total appellation of Sancerre. Of course, we have other type of subsoil, little variation. We have actually a lot of different type of subsoil, but those are the three main type of soil you will find in both appellation, in both Pouilly-Fumé and Sancerre. So coming back to the Sancerre 2019, La Perrière, what we want here is definitely something very typical from the appellation. We got different range of products within La Perrière range in terms of Sancerre. This one is what we call the classic one. In La Perrière, I told you we got 45 hectares of vineyard, and about 70% of our vineyard is actually sitting on flint. Those 20% that we've seen just before, we got a majority. We are not, like some other estate. We have a huge proportion of flint in our vineyard in La Perrière. So this wine is a blend of the three different type of soil that we got on the property, with a majority of flint, meaning that sometimes, and that's something I like to say because we don't interfere too much in the vinification process. It's all natural yeast or indigenous yeast. We don't use yeast most of the time for the fermentation. I'm sure you remember the cave on the previous slide. We don't need a lot of interaction, the wines to be fermented in that kind of atmosphere. We don't interfere a lot in terms of vinification. So what we want is a wine as pure as possible, as close to the terroir it's coming from. And sometimes when we don't have when we don't reach enough maturity on some vintages, this wine can be a little bit austere when it's young. And that's not the case on the 19, because 19 was very generous in terms of sun, in terms of maturity. But sometimes, like for example, I remember back in the days, the 2007 vintage, which was very, very low in maturity. We have wines that reveal themselves after 2 or 3 years in bottle. But that's not the case for the 19.
Thoughts, team? Thoughts?
I'm gonna just say what I'm thinking, but it's gonna be really off base. Like, not off base. It's gonna be strange. First of all, one of the notes that I'm getting is celery. I get some interesting notes. But when I was tasting it, it reminds me of a very specific citrus fruit that I've never had outside of Costa Rica. I was living in Costa Rica for a very large portion of my life, so I'm sorry if this isn't super familiar to a lot of people. But they grow a lot of citrus fruits, and none of them make sense. But they have this one that is called a sweet lemon. And on the outside, it smells like a lime, but it looks like a lemon in the shape of an orange. And when you cut it open, it's translucent white. And it's like, yeah, it's wild. And it's like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like sweet, not tart, with a very light hint of bitterness. I've never seen it anywhere else. But this wine tastes like that lemon. And it's not a lemon. I don't think that's actually what it would be, but it is a citrus fruit. And all I want right now is a rotisserie chicken. Just keep it simple. Somebody go to Walmart, get me a rotisserie chicken, bring it over, and let's drink this bottle. This is really nice, but I've never ever had anything that reminded me so strongly of that fruit before. Very interesting.
From obscure Costa Rican superfruits to rotisserie chicken, I like this.
Lawson Market rotisserie chicken, folks.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
And, ask them for their exotic fruit selection. You never know.
You never know.
Raj, what are you feeling?
Moberly, I'm feeling really good right now. I'm actually really enjoying this tasting. This has been very informative. Arnaud, you've been fantastic so far. I know we haven't finished the last wine yet, but I have two important things to say about this wine. The first thing is that when I suggest wines to my guests at my bar and at my restaurant, wine is about, to me, a journey. It's about location, it's about people and terroir, and about going to a place far away, right? So when I close my eyes, I've never been to France, unfortunately. Hopefully sometime soon I can come visit you, Arnaud. It'd be fantastic to do. But I close my eyes and I think about, rolling green hills in France, in Sancerre, drinking this wine. I'm really enjoying the minerality of this wine. It's very easy drinking. And I'm a huge fan of this so far. The second big thing I'm going to say is that this tastes like a daiquiri in a bottle. I love daiquiris, and this tastes like a daiquiri to me. Minus some of like the funky rum notes you might get, but like the citrus, like lime, kaffir lime, all of that. I'm getting a lot of that in this with the minerality and some salinity as well. And I'm really enjoying the salinity of this wine a lot. Chandler, it's your fault because you were talking about those citrus fruits, and then I was drinking it and I was like, this tastes like a daiquiri. And I don't know why. Yeah, I mean, it just has
you said kaffir. You said kaffir lime, and I'm like, I can see that leaf, that
that bright green leaf. It has those like notes to it. And like now that I'm talking about daiquiris, I'm messing with my brain, thinking I'm smelling like some funky agricole rum or like some Jamaican rum or something here. But it's not. I mean, this is delicious, and I'm really enjoying this quite a bit.
I wish you could taste that lemon. It's now that making me think that lemon might be daiquiri-esque, but I didn't drink daiquiris at the time I was introduced to the lemon, so now I've got to like revisit that at some point.
I mean, I know Josh Seberg is a daiquiri expert, so maybe he can chime in on that.
Is that the frozen drink from like the Island Oasis machines?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
When you make it, it is, yes.
No, but yeah, it's so funny that you say that because it's also, I think, like, daiquiris being sort of the litmus test for balance of sugar, alcohol, and acidity, right? To see those reflected here is like, yeah, that makes total sense. And these things are in perfect balance. Especially for me, the way I like my daiquiris is a little more on the acid side. And what I always say about Sancerre is like I kind of want it to like cramp here, and then it kind of like creeps back into your shoulders and like makes you do like a little shimmy. And like all of that is pleasant here.
Well, aside from Josh's dancing Sancerre dance, which I would love to see one day, and I would like to see the shimmy. We have a question from, which I think is very applicable at this point in the tasting, which is for everyone. What are your tips and tricks for clearing the palate for smelling and tasting, since we're at this point in tasting lots of different wines?
I mean, I definitely like the smelling of your skin. I was taught that very early on. Yeah, you've probably seen me do that a few times here during the presentation. But, your personal pheromones and your smells, only you have those smells, right? So I always give my arm a sniff and kind of clear out my nose a little bit so I can go back for another whiff of whatever I'm trying to taste and smell.
That's a good trick. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think it's a great trick, but I have run into a few issues on occasion when doing wine tastings with a lot of femme or women type of individuals, because if they decide to wear a lot of perfumes, a lot of the times we like to put it like on our wrists, which ends up being on your arm. So if you don't have the ability to do that, coffee is a really good way to smell that, but then you have to like take a moment. And then as far as cleaning your palate, I'm a big sucker for bread, as long as you don't have like a gluten intolerance or a celiac condition. But bread is really good. And then I personally like sparkling water. I feel like if the bubbles kind of like act like sandpaper, they kind of like move all that stuff around. Sometimes just sipping water, especially if a wine has like an oily style quality, it doesn't really help get it off of your palate. Mm-hmm. So sometimes sparkling water is really good.
Yeah, I definitely ground coffee to like reset your nose is my go-to also. But I'm going to try your arm trick, Raj, because I don't wear very much perfume.
That's the one I always do. It works so much better for me than coffee or anything else, just because you're so inundated with your own smell that it's truly like the best way to reset your brain.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't showered today yet, so I definitely smell musty from a concert I went to last night in Indianapolis. So, but I know my smell very well, and yeah, it's just a great. It creates a baseline. It comes like back to that 0 or that baseline pH kind of thing. So you just kind of know.
Yeah, don't wear perfume and maybe shower after concerts and then do a wine tasting.
Chandler, you're onto something here. I really agree.
Well, Arnaud, are we ready to take us home?
Yeah, we're gonna taste the last wine that we have today, the Blanc Fumé de Pouilly, and again a little map exactly showing you the same facts than the Sancerre one, showing you the percentage of the different type of terroir. What you can see actually on the pink will be the flint. So you can see here is a very few flinty silex type of soil in the Pouilly Fumé appellation area. What you can see on the blue will be all limestone based, and what you see on the yellow will be the areas that are covered with chimerigen. So what we say the terre blanche on the Sancerre area. So you can see that there is a big proportion of limestone overall on the Pouilly Fumé area, and a very few actually silex flinty type of soil in this area. Just an important fact as well is that Pouilly Fumé is 100% white wine appellation. You can see the two grapes here, Sauvignon Blanc, of course, for the Pouilly Fumé, and Chasselas, which is actually the original grape variety of this region, which was used before the phylloxera period as a table resin, just to eat. It was carried on the Loire River to go to Paris to the restaurant. And when the phylloxera period arrived, all the vineyard, of course, died and was replaced slowly by the Sauvignon Blanc. Today, we have a very few Chasselas overall. I think it's about 50 hectares splitted on 20 different vine growers. So it's a very small proportion of Chasselas. The Chasselas that we vinified will make the wine called Pouilly-sur-Loire, which is actually Pouilly-sur-Loire is the name of the place, is the name of the village, and the Sauvignon Blanc will make the Pouilly Fumé. It's a small appellation in general. It's about 13,000 hectares. It's more than the half of Sancerre in terms of surface. Sancerre being about 2,800 hectares of vineyards. So a little more than the double of the size of the Pouilly Fumé area. So let's taste this wine. It's the 2018, and I wish that we could have the same vintage, but I'm sure you're gonna find it out later when you retaste those wines. You will find the same vintage one day to taste them side by side. So this wine is coming 100% from our vineyard in Pouilly. We run about in total about 55 hectares in the Pouilly Fumé appellation, and all this wine is coming from a chimerigen type of soil. So it's 100% chimerigen type of soil. And that's what I like in this Pouilly Fumé, is the characteristic that you can really bring into that wine. I don't know if it's Josh or Raj that talked about the salinity of the Sancerre, and I think on this one it's even more obvious on the back of the tongue, clearly coming from this type of soil, which are basically small shells that are fossilized in limestone. So you clearly have this kind of saltiness on the back of the tongue. It's most of the time Pouilly Fumé will be more will have a more earthy character, will be more mouthfeel than, generally speaking, of course, because it can vary from one vine grower to another. But if you taste Sancerre and Pouilly Fumé side by side, Pouilly Fumé most of the time will be more, I would say, generous in the style, would be more sunny in the character, when the Sancerre would be more elegant, more pure, more tense. That's the two main difference that we can find. As you can see on the map, we have the same type of terroir on both appellations. So many people ask me, but what makes those wines different one from the other? They are so close geographically. And I would say that this is the majority of the difference comes from the situation of the vineyard and the microclimate condition of the vineyards. Pouilly-Fumé is a relatively flat vineyard, so meaning that we don't have huge slopes, when Sancerre is very hilly compared to Pouilly, so we have very big slopes here and there, and the microclimate that comes to both appellations will give very different personalities to the wine themselves, even if they come from the same type of soil and the same grape variety. So most of the time, the grapes that we have in Sancerre will ripe a little bit slower than what we got in Pouilly. So that during the harvest time, that's what we can notice. The maturity in Pouilly-Fumé, because of the fact that it's more flat than Sancerre, the maturity will happen very shortly, in a very short period of time, when Sancerre will be more through the days, and that won't occur the same way that it occurs in Pouilly. So that explains the difference between those wines.
Mr. Seberg, are we dancing? Are we shimmying, as you said it last?
We're shimmying. I did have a quick question in general, though, and like everyone can help me answer this, I hope. Pouilly-Fumé is like one of our favorite expressions of Sauvignon Blanc in our household, but I feel like it's so much less common to see, on lists or in wine shops than Sancerre and, many other French wines in general. Is there just less production coming out of Pouilly-Fumé? Is it something you guys all see in your markets, or is Southeast Virginia just not showing Pouilly-Fumé the love it needs?
I know, at least on the where I'm at, we don't see a lot on the menus. No.
And I will second that too. I don't see this very much on many menus, and even more so, this is the first time I've ever had this style of wine, knowing that's 100% Sauvignon Blanc. But this is the first time I've ever had this before, and I'm really excited to try this. I'm glad you're doing this last, because I've never had this one before. But yeah, we don't see very much of this in our local area for sure.
Yeah, same here. I'm not going to lie. I was really excited for this bottle, mainly because I've never seen it. And I was really hoping to get the box so that I could taste it. But yeah, I've honestly never really seen it on a menu anywhere. I've gone in Texas or Colorado or Hawaii, which are the other two markets that I've worked at in the U.S. It's not very common.
Well, what do we think?
So I guess Arnaud, with like oh, sorry to interrupt you, but with like that general set, do you feel like, is Pouilly-Fumé just a little like underproduced compared to other things, or just underloved?
I think the of course there is a production issue there, meaning that the appellation of Pouilly is less than the half of the one Sancerre, so the production is smaller. But this is not the real answer of the fact that it's not very present on the US market. There is a big difference between Pouilly-Fumé and Sancerre producers. We produce in both, so we are in both sides of the river. But traditionally, Pouilly-Fumé was crossed by a road called the National 7, which was a road that every Parisian or every people from the north of France would take to go south during their vacation. Most of the Pouilly-Fumé producer would sell, in the 60s, 70s, even mid-80s, most of the producer in Pouilly would sell their wines during 3 months of the year at the cellar door. For Sancerre, it was a different story. They were a little bit in the countryside, not far away from this main road, but enough not for those people to go to see them and buy the wine at their cellar door. So traditionally, the people from Sancerre are definitely more salespeople in a good way. When I do a trade show in other country, I can go to Hong Kong, for example, for a trade show. I will see like 15 or 20 people from Sancerre coming in with their booths, showing their wines, and maybe 1 or 2 from Pouilly-Fumé. So I think there is a different mindset. There is a different culture, even if we are very close neighbors. But in Pouilly-Fumé, we are definitely more agricultural mindset than Sancerre, that is definitely more sales oriented and marketing, but again in a positive way. Those people they had the success for the past 10, 12 years on their appellation but they invest a lot, meaning that the vineyard of Sancerre itself is very different from the vineyard in Pouilly. I'm happy to see that the new generation coming in Pouilly is changing the rules step by step. But in Sancerre, it's been 12 or 15 years that vine growers do a lot of effort in their vineyard. I mean, not using pesticides, herbicides, working out their soils, having healthy plants. And I think that's one of the reasons why Sancerre is on a kind of virtuous cycle, you know. And I've heard my dad telling me that in the 70s or 80s in the US, Pouilly Fumé was far away in front of Sancerre in terms of sales. I mean, there were no bottles of Sancerre on the wine list in the US, but Pouilly Fumé was everywhere. It was thanks to one producer that is still producing wines, but unfortunately is not the brand that it was in the past. It's Château du Nozay de la Doucette. I don't know if you heard of that brand before, but this specific producer used to be a real flag for the Pouilly Fumé appellation, and there is no more big producer, big flag for the appellation of Pouilly Fumé to be widely exported. The major market for Pouilly Fumé are what we call traditional Europe. I mean, it's sold in Belgium, Netherlands, UK, Germany a little bit. Those are the main markets where the production is focused, outside of France, of course.
Well, that explains a lot on why we aren't seeing it as much. But now that y'all got to try this amazing varietal, what are we thinking?
Are you prepared? I actually had to write this down.
All right, we're strapping ourselves in here.
Okay, bear with me. I'm never going to be invited back to one of these.
This is why you're here. This is the exact reason why.
On the nose, and this is going to be really, really complex, but my first reaction was caraway seed, which isn't an aroma I get often, and it's not something a lot of people are familiar with. I wasn't familiar with it for many years, even as a chef. But caraway seed, fresh tarragon, Granny Smith apple skin, not the flesh, wet terracotta, bamboo salt. If you've never had that, it's like lightly green in color, and they put it in these bamboo stalks to like finish drying. It's really, really, really cool. And then there's like this really mild earthiness. But if you've ever smelled truffles, and I know a lot of people think they have, and I say think because I thought I had until I actually smelled truffles in person when they were fresh, and they will knock you on your behind. So if someone was maybe halfway down my street with a white truffle, that's what this smells like, because they're really, really pungent. People don't understand, like in reality, how incredibly strong they are. But so it's earthy, but it's really, really mild. And then drinking it, the things that I want to pair it with are all across the board. So I want to pair it with asparagus and bacon mixed together, sashimi, hummus, and a salted crema catalana, which is the Spaniard version of a creme brulee. So yeah, do with that what you will, guys. I'm not
That
sorry.
is thorough.
This is
I'm so excited to look up bamboo salt. Let me tell you what, I have no context for that, and I'm very excited.
I think, yeah, so we all headed to Texas for like dinner at Chandler's house.
Sounds like
Hey,
it.
Sign me up. I'm going to Chandler's.
Or no,
My
get the plan.
house is open, and obviously I have a lot of wines that need help being drank.
I do have a quick question for our note. So, I mean, this is my first time trying this style of wine from the Loire Valley. You know, for my guests and my consumers, you know, where is this style of wine targeted to? Is it the Chardonnay drinkers, the Sauvignon Blanc drinkers, the Pinot Grigio drinkers, the Champagne drinkers? I mean, I feel like this could do really well in my market. You know, looking at it from a business side, I really think it could do really well. I think it has a great flavor, great aroma. It's easy drinking. The salinity in this is amazing. Like I love salt in food. I love salt in drinks. I really do. But I mean, what would you suggest? Like, what would you say as far as gearing this towards a different demographic, a different drinker? Who would be drinking this?
Well, I think the easy answer to that, and I think the fact that we decided to add a Pouilly Fumé to that range is first because it's the original appellation from the family, but also to provide an alternative to the highly demanded Sancerre. And I think if you got hard time sometimes to make people getting away from Sancerre, if you get them on the wine list, I think that's a real serious alternative to Sancerre. People sometimes drink Sancerre because it's Sancerre, it's written Sancerre on the label, sometimes they don't know what's inside. And I think for those people that are open enough, to try something a little bit different, I would suggest that you can trade them to this type of wine. It's interesting because you mentioned Chardonnay before. I think I wouldn't say that the same with the Sancerre, but for this specific wine, this Sauvignon Blanc, I think it could really appeal to those people that drinks Chardonnay because it has enough structure, enough body into it, to kind of seduce those kind of Chardonnay drinkers.
Awesome.
Seduce again.
I was going to say, I just love the use of seduce.
It's all a matter of seduction,
So, Arnaud, you also said that Sancerre is more popular than probably the Pouvet. Would you agree that this wine is more of like the industry alternative to wine when it comes to Sancerre versus the other?
You mean the Blanc Fumé would be the alternative? That's the question?
Yes.
Yeah, but I think the work behind Sancerre was fantastic, and it has been done from the producer, from the importer, the distributors, you guys working fantastically with this appellation for 10 years. It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough for Pouilly Fumé, to kind of make some room on the wine list and on people's heart, But yeah, that's what I say on some markets that are sometimes more mature to make this switch, I say, you are fed up sometimes selling Sancerre, but try to sell this wine. It's very nice. It's a very serious alternative, and most of the time in terms of price, it's gonna be a little bit softer than the Sancerre. So I think that's a serious alternative to Sancerre for sure.
Thank you.
Well, this has been absolutely amazing, Arnaud. Do we have any last questions, team, panel? This has been so great. I've learned so much. Chandler's got me going to I've got an Amazon cart I'm trying to fill with exotic new ingredients. I'm super excited.
Sorry.
Josh has got me shimmying. Raj has got me to talk to my mom about wine.
Raj, go eat.
It's been amazing.
Raj, go eat.
But Arnaud, thank you so much for your time, for sharing all this with us. Thank you everyone who participated in the quiz, who received their packages. I want to thank this panel for being so sweet and lovely and seductive. This was a very seductive scenario. We've also want you to go to sagerleperrier.com. There's a product finder there, or follow them on Instagram. That's their handle there. Please make sure you're following us at Portland Cocktail PDXCW on Instagram, or Portland Cocktail Week PDXCW on Facebook. Make sure you're taking a look at our YouTube as well. Subscribe and like that. We're going to be loading that with lots of wonderful content. If you haven't seen the masterclass, if you just popped in for this, me and Arnaud went into deep about the Loire Valley on our last class, which was absolutely amazing. But thank you everyone for being here today. Thank you, Arnaud, so much for sharing your knowledge. And thank you to this wonderful, very seductive panel for all of your insight. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.